China holds a secret so well kept that not even China itself knows it exists. That's right, a massive underground structure with cutting-edge engineering built thousands of years ago. And no one, not emperors, not historians, not archaeologists, has been able to explain it. We're talking about 24 perfectly carved caves with no floors, no soot, and no records, as if they had simply appeared out of nowhere. But the strangest part is the silence. Why doesn't anyone talk about this? Why do scientists avoid the topic whenever this discovery comes up? And why does no theory make any sense, not even the ones involving aliens? What I'm about to show you is not a mystery story. It's a deliberate glitch in humanity's timeline. Get ready, because after this, you'll never look at history the same way again. Chapter 1. The enigma of the Longyou Caves. No one digs something this monumental underground just for fun. There are no clues as to where all the removed material went, and we're talking about tons and tons of stone that had to be extracted from each site. The scale of this complex is enormous, with a total of 24 caves, and we're only discussing one of them. Whoever built the Longyou Caves had extraordinary knowledge, something comparable to modern technology. To me, this discovery is as significant as the tomb of Tutankhamun, something almost unimaginable. There are no historical records explaining how this place was built, nor any clear evidence of its intended purpose. Perhaps it was used to create aquatic environments and raise giant fish, like in some caves today. Or maybe something catastrophic happened in the past, and these structures were created as a form of survival. After all, no one undertakes such a grand project without a reason, right? The way these caves were excavated defies conventional human construction methods. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. As we dig deeper, the mystery surrounding these caves only intensifies, revealing secrets that challenge even the most renowned experts. Stay with me, because what you're about to discover goes far beyond anything you can imagine. There are many mysteries here, and if you're looking for answers, you've come to the right place. Chapter 1. The enigma of the Longyou Caves. For millennia, the Longyou Caves remained forgotten by history. No one knew of their existence until a curious villager from Xi'an decided to investigate a local legend. Everyone in the village knew the stories of the bottomless lakes, small lakes scattered across 5 locations in the region, said to be as deep as the ocean. For years, villagers tried measuring the depth of these lakes with long poles, but could never find the bottom, which only deepened the mystery. One day, a resident caught a huge fish, one typical of deep waters, and that made everyone question the true depth of those lakes. That was when Wu and I, a local villager, decided to solve the mystery once and for all. On June 9th, 1992, he and 3 other residents began the laborious task of draining one of the lakes. After nearly 3 weeks of continuous pumping, what Wu discovered was nothing like what he had imagined. The lakes did, in fact, have a bottom, but that bottom was something unimaginable, a massive artificial cave. Once the draining was complete, Wu found himself standing in a cave measuring 1,022 square meters with a height of 30 meters, the equivalent of a 10-story building. Imagine the shock of seeing something like that hidden beneath the surface of a lake. Now imagine you are Wu Anai, stepping into those caves and becoming the first modern person to explore this mystery. The first thing that catches your attention are the markings on the walls. Parallel lines carefully etched, covering everything from the pillars to the ceiling. You wonder whether these marks have meaning, maybe a code, or if they are simply some form of unknown art. As you venture deeper into the cave, observing every detail with care, you notice pillars spread throughout the space. They are about 50 centimeters thick, relatively slim, which raises another question. How has the cave's ceiling not collapsed? How old is this cave? And here comes another mystery. At first glance, it looks like the cave was built recently. Everything is in pristine condition, with no signs of deterioration. But if it was built recently, why have we never heard about it before? There are no stories, no legends, no myths explaining this construction. Bacon is a small village. Something so massive couldn't possibly have gone unnoticed. As you reflect on all this, you notice the stairs. They seem much steeper than normal stairs, almost as if they were made for beings of great stature. But before you can make sense of it all, more features draw your attention. Stone chambers, bridges, channels, pools, and the fact that there are 23 more caves just like this one. When the Longyou Caves were finally revealed to the world, experts from various fields rushed to the site, eager to decipher the enigmas they believed were hidden deep within these caverns. However, instead of answers, the caves only raised more questions. Archaeologists who investigated the caves suggest that their construction likely dates back to the Western Han Dynasty, which lasted from 206 BCE to 23 CE, placing the caves at approximately 2,000 years old. What makes it even more intriguing is the complete absence of historical records mentioning their construction. Now I want to know your opinion. Which theory makes the most sense to you so far? Leave it in the comments, and at the end of this video, I'll share what I believe to be the most plausible explanation, and it may be far from what you expect. I'll get to that shortly, but for now, let's explore the first major mystery. How were these caves built? Engineers from several countries studied the Longyou Caves and reached a consensus. The construction of these caves required an impressive level of skill and precision. There are no visible flaws in their execution, either in architectural design or implementation. Each cave takes the form of an elegant hall with 4 parallel walls and clearly defined angles. One side of the caves is always steep, while the opposite side has a 45-degree slope. Each cave has only one entrance, which leads to a vertical shaft fitted with a staircase, allowing sunlight and rainwater to enter. However, the builders created an intricate system of trenches and drainage channels at the base of the caves, along with a water collection system, evidence of advanced knowledge of hydrology and water management for that era. But how was that possible? And that's not all. The precision with which these caves were excavated and the uniformity of their design across all 24 caves are truly remarkable. What if I told you that even the excavation methods appear to have used technologies we only recognize today? How could people thousands of years ago accomplish work that many modern engineers claim would be impossible without contemporary tools? There's something here that doesn't fit within conventional explanations, especially considering that the caves are not connected to each other. Archaeologists concluded that the builders of one cave would have had no way of knowing what their peers were doing in neighboring caves. This means that to ensure all the caves were so similar, the architects would have needed extremely precise measuring tools and detailed architectural plans. Even if we accept that they had access to such resources, the execution of the Longyou Caves remains a stunning feat of engineering. Another mystery is why the builders felt the need to construct so many identical caves without connecting them. Moreover, they chose the most difficult method of excavation instead of using more efficient tools such as pickaxes or hammers. Speaking of excavation, scientists estimate that approximately 1 million cubic meters of stone, the equivalent of nearly half the volume of the Great Pyramid of Giza, was removed to build these caves. This brings us to another puzzle. Where did all that stone go? We haven't even touched on the most controversial theory about the Longyou Caves, one that is rarely discussed. At the end of this video, I'll tell you why many scholars avoid commenting on this hypothesis, and how it might be the key to finally unraveling this ancient enigma. There is no trace of the removed stone in the vicinity, nor in any surrounding buildings or structures. It seems that somehow this immense volume of rock simply vanished. Another intriguing challenge is how the builders managed to work inside the caves with such limited light. Sunlight only reaches the caves at specific angles due to the shape of the entrances. As one moves deeper into the cave, the light decreases dramatically, making visibility very poor. To carry out any work under these conditions, the builders would have needed an alternative light source. However, since electricity had not yet been invented, the natural assumption is that they used torches. But there is no trace of soot on the walls or ceilings of the caves, which raises the question, how could they see while working? Could they have worked in the dark or used some kind of technology we do not yet understand? Beyond the issue of lighting, another great mystery involves the structural integrity of these caves over the millennia. The Longyou Caves are not the only large man-made caves ever discovered, but most others have not withstood the test of time due to erosion and collapse. Examples include the Bet Guvrin quarry in Israel and the Wieliczka salt mine in Poland, both large artificial caves that have suffered serious damage over the centuries. The Longyou Caves, on the other hand, remain in near-perfect condition, despite having endured natural disasters and conflicts throughout the years. But wait, the mystery gets even deeper. How have these caves, hidden in secrecy for millennia, remained intact while others around the world have collapsed? Don't miss the next segment as we reveal something even more shocking, the most baffling mystery of all. The most baffling mystery of all, however, is that there is no historical mention whatsoever of the construction of these caves. There are no records, legends, myths, or any indication that a project of such magnitude was ever undertaken at any point in known history. This leaves experts perplexed. How could such a monumental work, which required so much effort, have been completely forgotten by historical records? No historical record of the Longyou Caves. Here is what we know. There are 24 gigantic caves, with architecture and construction techniques far beyond their time. We have no idea who built them or how they were made. Most intriguingly, there are no historical records of their construction. That is strange in itself, but it becomes even more bizarre when we consider that these caves are located in China and, by all indications, were built during the Han Dynasty. If you know anything about the Han Dynasty, you know they were meticulous in recording everything. It is practically inconceivable that a project of such magnitude, like the construction of the Longyou Caves, could have simply gone unnoticed. The Han Dynasty was known for documenting even the tiniest details of its cultural and political life. For example, the Yuefu, the Music Bureau, kept detailed records of music, instruments, songs, and even the choreography of dances performed in temple rituals. If ritual dances and the details of theatrical performances were recorded with such care, how can we explain the absence of any mention of a project as grand as the Longyou Caves? Surely something more is going on here. Now compare this with other major archaeological discoveries in China. Think, for instance, of the Terracotta Army, which remained buried for more than 2,000 years and was discovered in 1974. Despite the time it was hidden, scientists had little difficulty linking the army to Emperor Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China, thanks to historical records and evidence. Then we have the Great Wall of China, another colossal engineering feat, with every phase of its construction meticulously recorded. We even know that about 4,000 workers died during the construction of the wall, and some were buried within it. So why does a project as spectacular as the Longyou Caves have absolutely no historical record? According to scientists, just excavating the stone would have required the full-time labor of 1,000 people, working around the clock, 24 hours a day, for 6 consecutive years. And that is not even counting the precision needed to carve the chisel marks that cover the caves. And still, there is no trace that this massive undertaking was ever documented. Could the records have been intentionally destroyed? Were these ancient builders trying to hide something? Or perhaps even protect something? Think about it. Such an immense and carefully crafted structure with no trace of its construction. Could that have been done on purpose? Stay with me, and you will see that this question may have a very surprising answer. We know that in ancient Chinese history, the destruction of records for political reasons was not uncommon. However, even if that had happened, those responsible would have had to be extremely thorough to completely erase any mention of these caves. But there is another possibility, even more unsettling. Could it be that the Longyou Caves were already unknown, even at the time they were built? Why were the Longyou Caves built? To this day, science has not been able to answer the central question: why were the Longyou Caves built? Many theories have been proposed over the years, some quite extravagant and others more plausible. However, upon closer examination, they all fall short in some way. The greatest obstacle scientists face is the enigmatic parallel lines that cover the surfaces of the caves. These tool marks are present in all 24 caves, as if the builders had a compulsory need to carve them. But what is the purpose of these lines? Are they merely decorative, a hidden code, or something functional? No one knows for sure, and all we have are speculations. Which brings us to the next point, Chapter 2, Theories about the Longyou Caves. Given the mysterious nature of these caves, several theories have been developed to explain their origin and purpose. Let us explore some of the most popular and plausible ones, starting with a theory about how they were built and moving on to theories about why they were made. Theory 1. Built by an ancient civilization with lost technology. One of the most intriguing theories is that the Longyou Caves were created by an ancient civilization that mastered a now lost technology. Proponents of this idea argue that manual labor alone would not have been sufficient to achieve such an impressive engineering feat. When comparing the markings on the cave walls with those made by modern drilling machines, the similarities are striking. Now get ready for a theory that defies all logic. Could a civilization far more advanced than ours have been involved in the creation of these caves? Some researchers suggest that the work was carried out using a long-lost technology, perhaps even of extraterrestrial origin. It may sound absurd, but the visible evidence inside the caves raises this possibility. Keep watching, and you'll understand why this theory might not be so far-fetched after all. This has led some to speculate that advanced machinery could have been used in the construction. Some even go as far as to suggest that this ancient civilization might have been connected to the Anunnaki, beings mentioned in Sumerian mythology. The Sumerians, one of humanity's oldest civilizations, believed that the Anunnaki were responsible for many of their advancements, such as writing, astronomy, and architecture. If we consider this hypothesis, it could explain why there are no historical records of the construction of the Longyou Caves. They may not have been built 2,000 years ago, but perhaps 6,000 years ago by an advanced civilization that preceded the Han dynasty. In this scenario, the dynasty simply had no knowledge of the cave's existence, which would justify the absence of historical documentation. Theory 2. An imperial palace. Another theory is that the caves were originally built as a palace or luxurious residence for an emperor. The grandeur of the site, the precision of the markings, and the complexity of the design suggest a project that spared no effort or resources. This would make sense if a powerful ruler had commissioned the site as a refuge or monumental structure. Palaces are often elaborate and grandiose, and the attention to detail in the Longyou Caves, such as the fine tool marks, could reinforce this idea. Theory 3. Emperor's tomb or religious site. A third theory proposes that the Longyou Caves could have been an imperial tomb or a sacred site intended for religious rituals. The caves are located beneath Fanghang Hill, a revered symbol in Chinese mythology. Fanghang resembles a phoenix and is associated with royalty, rebirth, and the harmony between yin and yang. The sacred symbolism of the hill may have made the site auspicious for the construction of a monumental project, such as an emperor's tomb or a temple where passage rituals to the afterlife were performed. It is believed that the builders of the Longyou Caves chose this specific location because of the symbolic connection to Fanghang, believing it would ensure a peaceful transition to the afterlife or strengthen their rituals. Furthermore, the design of the caves, with their vast spaces and architectural complexity, suggests that the site could have been built to accommodate important ceremonies with religious or funerary purposes. Theory 4. Storage Facility Dr. Zhu Kai from Xi'an University proposes that the Longyou Caves were constructed under the command of Emperor Xuan of the Western Han Dynasty as a strategic project. According to this theory, the goal was to create storage facilities in border regions to hold vital supplies such as food, goods, and weapons in preparation for possible wars. This explanation makes sense, considering the cave's strategic location and the historical need to maintain war stockpiles. However, the grandeur and sophistication of the caves still seem disproportionate to the simple purpose of storage, especially given the complexity of the excavation and the precision of the cave details. Theory 5. Military hideout. This theory splits into two branches. The first suggests that the Longyou Caves were used as a secret military hideout where war strategies were developed away from enemy eyes. According to historical accounts, a Chinese emperor may have used the caves to conceal troops and plan attacks. The second version, presented by Yanggang Hongshun of the Institute of Archaeology at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, suggests that the caves were built around 494 BC by King Guan. After a disastrous defeat in battle, Guan is said to have ordered the construction of the caves as a refuge for himself and his soldiers to escape humiliation. Both hypotheses are plausible, since hiding troops or establishing secret bases makes sense from a strategic standpoint. However, the lack of records and the absence of signs of military occupation weaken the credibility of these theories. Theory 6. Cisterns. The cistern theory has recently gained traction and may be one of the most viable explanations for the purpose of the Longyou Caves. The cave's architecture, with a wide base and a narrower top, seems ideal for storing large volumes of water while minimizing evaporation. Moreover, experts point out that when the caves were built, around 200 BC, the world was experiencing a global drought, which would justify the creation of enormous water reservoirs. Another point that reinforces this theory is the fact that the caves maintained their structural integrity over time because they remained filled with water. After drainage, it became necessary to install supports to prevent the ceilings from collapsing, which suggests that the water played an important role in sustaining the structures. This technical detail seems to lend further credibility to the idea that the caves served as cisterns, used to collect and preserve water during times of drought. However, even this theory is not foolproof. If the caves were truly cisterns, one would expect to find some kind of additional infrastructure, such as intake channels or devices to facilitate the transport of stored water, and none of these elements were found during the excavations. Moreover, the extremely detailed workmanship on the cave walls does not seem necessary for the simple function of water storage. Analysis of the theories. Although all these theories present interesting and even plausible elements, each has a fundamental flaw that prevents a definitive conclusion. Let us examine the critical points. Warehouse. While the idea of the caves serving as storage makes military sense, The level of sophistication and the scale of the excavations exceed what would be necessary for simple warehouses. Military hideout. The absence of concrete evidence of military occupation, such as tools, weapons, or historical records, weakens this theory. Cisterns. Although the structure of the caves is compatible with water reservoirs, the lack of a collection and transport system, as well as the presence of chisel marks on all walls, contradicts the idea that they were merely cisterns. Critical responses to the theories about the Longyou Caves. The Longyou Caves remain a mystery that has given rise to various theories, ranging from ancient civilizations with lost technology to cisterns. However, when critically analyzing these hypotheses, many aspects simply do not hold up. Let us deconstruct some of these popular theories. Theory 1, built by an ancient civilization with lost technology. This theory, which suggests that the caves were constructed about 6,000 years ago by a highly advanced civilization, such as the Anunnaki, may seem fascinating, but it does not withstand scientific scrutiny. One of the main points that refutes this idea is the presence of chisels found in the caves, indicating that the marks were made manually, not by sophisticated machines. Experts who have studied the marks on the walls concluded that they can be easily replicated by workers using chisels. If the caves had been created by a civilization with superior technology, why would they use such rudimentary tools? Furthermore, there are no myths or legends in Chinese tradition that reference an unknown advanced civilization or beings like the Anunnaki. This makes it unlikely that such an ancient and advanced culture carried out this work and left absolutely no trace or cultural record. Theory 2. Palace. The theory that the caves were built as an imperial palace or grand residence also does not hold up. When the caves were discovered, they were completely empty, with no evidence that they served as a dwelling or place of human activity. There were no valuables, furniture, utensils, or any traces suggesting the site was used for living or ceremonial purposes. The absence of evidence of occupation strongly rules out the hypothesis that the caves served as a palace or royal residence. Theory 3. Tomb or sacred site. The hypothesis that the caves might have been constructed as a tomb or religious site also falls apart due to the lack of artifacts or burial signs. Normally, a tomb or sacred site would contain funerary goods, religious artifacts, or at least traces of rituals. However, nothing of the sort was found in the Longyou Caves. Furthermore, the sophistication and size of the caves do not make sense for a site intended to house a tomb, given the absence of any religious symbolism or sacred objects. Theory 4. Military hideout. The idea that the caves could have been used as a military hideout also presents serious problems. The construction of such a monumental project during a time of war would be impractical. As mentioned, the amount of human resources and time required to excavate the caves would make it impossible to keep the project discreet. The construction would take years, and during wartime, the focus would be on immediate strategies, not long-term undertakings. Moreover, there is no sign that these caves were used for military activities, such as storing weapons or supplies, and again, the absence of evidence of occupation weakens this theory. Theory 5. Warehouse. The idea that the caves were used as warehouses for food and weapons also faces severe criticism. First, the caves have a strong tendency to fill with water, especially during the rainy season, which would make storing supplies unfeasible. Warehouses require dry and stable conditions, something the caves do not offer. Furthermore, no evidence of practical use for storage was found, such as shelves, platforms, or signs of goods being transported in and out of the caves. Theory 6. Cisterns. The cistern theory has been one of the most popular in recent times, partly because the caves do, in fact, seem to have preserved their structural integrity by being filled with water. However, this theory also has flaws. First, the chisel marks on all the walls suggest that the builders took care to create precise and uniform patterns, something that would be unnecessary if the sole purpose was simply to store water. Second, the caves are far too large and complex to be mere cisterns, and there are features such as staircases that would make no sense in a structure meant to be submerged most of the time. Why build stairs if the place was always going to be underwater? Critical Summary 1. Lost technology, refuted by the presence of manual markings and rudimentary tools, as well as the absence of legends or myths about an advanced civilization that could have built the caves. 2. Palace or tomb. The lack of any artifacts or traces of human occupation rules out these hypotheses. 3. Military hideout. Impractical during wartime, and there are no signs of military use or supply storage. 4. Warehouse. The caves would fill with water, making them unsuitable for storing food or weapons. 5. Cisterns. Although the structure is suitable for holding water, the markings and features of the caves suggest a more complex purpose than just cisterns. After critically analyzing all the main theories, it becomes clear that none of them fully explains the mystery of the Longyou Caves. They remain an archaeological enigma, with no clear and definitive explanation for their construction or purpose. Perhaps, like some of the greatest constructions in history, such as the pyramids, the true purpose of the Longyou Caves remains lost in time, awaiting new discoveries to provide more concrete answers. After all, why is a construction so grand, so precise and so enigmatic not mentioned in any books, not found in museums, and not discussed in academic circles with the attention it clearly deserves? Could we be facing a hidden chapter of our history? Or a civilization so advanced that we cannot even begin to comprehend it? The only thing we know for sure is this: the Longyou Caves are real, but the answers remain buried. Now I want to know, after everything you've seen here, what's your theory? What do you believe lies behind this mystery? Leave your comment below. Your opinion might help unravel this enigma. And if this video made you see history in a different light, then get ready. YouTube is recommending 2 more videos full of revelations that will surprise you as well. Click now and continue this journey into the unknown.